Right, I think we're in business. If there we go, it's just loading. Right, hello, Julie Ashmore here. It is May 2022, and I've decided to re-record my Paradise Lost slideshows for the purposes of revision, so we can see a screen that is loading. So this is for the OCR A-Level Literature Paper 1, the comparative paper, and here at QE we study Paradise Lost, books 9 and 10 with A Doll's House. So the purpose of these slides is for revision for my students, and I will be talking about A Doll's House where it feels appropriate. So, and I will also try and bring in some context where that also seems necessary. So we're going to dive straight into book 9. And I've just put here this little bit from these little introductions that Milton was asked to write when he turned the epic from 10 books into 12. Great timing. Excuse me, hay fever season is on us. And so what happens in book 10, Satan finally finds his way into Earth. He transforms, or he enters the serpent. I always think the poor snakes get such a rough deal in this poem. Adam and Eve separate, Eve making the fatal decision to disobey her husband. Some of my students often think that her sin, her mistake is that she wants to go and work alone. It's not. It's that it's whatever she was going to want to do. It's the fact that Adam didn't want her to. Also, he's a bit culpable. He is the man, after all, as Son of God will say later on, was she thy God? So he should have put his foot down a little bit more. Anyway, the serpent finds her, and the rest, as we say, is history. Okay. So what is first kind of notable here is this shift. So Milton's writing in this epic form, and for the previous 9 books, he's been discussing everything that's been going on with kind of Adam, and Adam's talks with the angels, what's been going on in hell, Adam's loneliness and desire for a mate, and everything's been, peachy pie. But look at our first word, no more. So we're opening with these negatives. I won't be doing any literary analysis because that's not a component for this part of the exam. Sometimes there are little bits that I kind of can't help myself with, and I do always think that a good literature essay, whether it's a component or not, will automatically make reference to them. So now we're talking about instantly what has been lost, right? So clues in the title, Paradise Lost, no more of talk, where God or angel guessed with man, as with his friend familiar used to sit indulgent. I now must change those notes to tragic. So now we get that slide, that plummet into the sin, the disobedience. We're going to move from the pre to the post-lapsarian. And this is Milton very much taking charge of the narrative. This is his story to tell. He is justifying the ways of God to man. So we find, and again, I'm not going through every single line here, so I've skipped over a fair bit. And the main reason for that is because you've got an hour in the exam and you're looking for bits that will talk to A Doll's House or whatever your text is, whatever your play is. Video being shown next door. Noisy, these colleges, aren't they? So what I'm doing is focusing in on bits that I know will work with A Doll's House. So off he goes, looking, he's found his way in, and now he's got to think about how he's going to kind of disguise himself. So this first straight away introduces this theme of deliberate deception and disguise. Okay, I had a quick pause there because they were listening to a video about Lazarus next door, obviously. It was a little bit loud. So, as I was saying, this is him, this is straight away this theme of deliberate deception. He looks around, his final sentence chose, fit vessel, fittest imp of fraud, in whom to enter. And his dark suggestions hide from sharpest sight. So we might want to think there about characters who deliberately deceive, who wear a costume, who pretend to be somebody else, and whether they're doing that consciously or not. You might even think about Nora here, and whether she is deceptive, but what are her motivations for that deceit? They're certainly not the same as Satan's, are they? Okay. Anyway, time for a little bit of self-reflection from Satan. He's not happy because as he looks around this beautiful setting of Eden, and he thinks if there was one place that I could be happy, it would be here. He's constantly tormented by the fact that God has made this place for Adam, for the human race, and not for him. He kind of conveniently forgets that, he did lead a rebellion against God. But I in none of these find place or refuge. And the more I see pleasures about me, so much more I feel torment within me. So again, and I'm just going to keep doing this, and some of the links will be tenuous and some will be a lot more concrete, but thinking about characters who are happy in their settings, happy in their environment. Eve is happy in her environment. If anything, Eve just wants to make it better by doing a bit more work. I don't want students writing that she goes off gardening because she's, annoyed with Adam or whatever. She's actually kind of really following that Puritan work ethic of wanting to do more to serve her God. It's Adam that says to her later on, look, God hasn't said when we should work or how much we have to do. But here is a character who cannot be happy anywhere. And it's nothing really to do with the setting. It's to do with the torment within me. In a similar way that we see that Nora realizes that she can't be happy in her dollhouse because she recognizes the torment within her at the end. And in a similar way, when Mrs. Lynn tells Nora about her story and how, yes, she got married and she helped raise a family, not her own, but she could never be happy there because that wasn't, she wasn't doing it for the right motivations. And so talking of motivations, here we have Satan talking about what he wants to do. And it's not to make himself happier by being in Eden, but to make others such as me. Only in destroying I find ease to my relentless thoughts. So he's a character bent on destruction. Okay, so you might want to think there about Satan's motivations in destruction. Are they the same with as Krogstad's? You know what? No, they're not. However much you want to argue that the Krogstad is the villain of A Doll's House, and personally I do not see him in that way at all. I don't think that you can make this direct link. And this is again something students are really almost terrified of doing, contrasts, right? So your AO14 little topic intro might be to explore how both writers present ideas of characters who end up or are motivated to destroy, but their motivations are different, right? Please be reassured of that. I am an examiner for this paper. I do know what I'm talking about. Okay, so in the next section, Eve persuades Adam that they should work apart. Okay. So I've just copied into here a little link from the British Library. If you haven't used the British Library as a resource for both AO5 and AO3, you should. I mean, there's just tons of stuff in there. And you also get to see photographs sometimes videos of original manuscripts, which is just a treat. And if you don't know where the British Library is, if you're ever in London, it's, I'm going to say, more or less next door to King's Cross. St Pancras a bit further on, but it's, you know, if you get to London, you hop off the train, I would go there first, even if just for the gift shop. Just a little aside. Okay, so we'll come back to this later on, but what's interesting here is this aspect, the poet emphasizing the hierarchical distinction between Adam and Eve, right? And how that is established as far back as Book 4. Here, Book 4 becomes context. It's things that are beyond the text that help shed meaning and light onto the text in front of you. So what's the difference between them? Well, they are not equal. For contemplation, he and valour formed. He's for thinking and fighting and bravery. She's for softness and sweet attractive grace. He for God, she for God in him. So he is her God as God is Adam's God. Okay. So what happens when that hierarchy is challenged? Well, first of all, let's see this pair wake up in Eden. And as we all do, I know I did it at 5:10 when my son woke me up. I just sang. I just sang for the joy and wonder of being alive. They joined their vocal worship to the choir of creatures wanting voice. And then, like any typical couple, they commune how that day they best may ply their growing work. I know my husband and I start every Saturday morning discussing the division of labour, who's doing the washing, who's walking the dog, who's making dinner. And this is where Eve puts forward her proposition, and she says, look, the thing is, until we have children who can help us do more work, everything that we do is quite ineffectual. The work under our labour grows, luxurious by restraint. What we by day lop overgrown, or prune, or prop, or bind, one night or two with wanton growth derides, tending to wild. She says, we're not making a lot of progress here. So she says, let's split up. You go where you think you will be most needed, whether to wind the woodbine round this arbour or direct the clasping ivy, while I, in yonder spring of roses intermixed with myrtle, find what to redress till noon, and myrtle being a symbol there of marriage and fidelity. I've got my book in front of me. I'm just checking I'm not missing any good notes. My book that has fallen apart a little bit. Until noon, because we keep getting distracted by each other. You know, what wonder is it if being so near to one another, looks intervene and smiles. And so our day's work is brought to little. They'll be begun early, and the hour of supper comes unearned. And that idea of the supper not being deserving, the supper not being deserved because they haven't worked hard enough, does tie into that whole Puritan work ethic. So the argument that Eve is putting forward is one that would have been recognised at the time as being quite a valid one, actually. So we might want to make a link here to Nora and work. What I want to draw attention to as we go on here is how the way that Adam talks to Eve is going to change. Here, at first, he's giving a mild answer, right? Soul Eve, he calls it, associate soul, to me beyond compare above all living creatures dear. Well hast thou motion. You know what, Eve, my beautiful one, my creature, my love, you make a good point. But you see, the thing is, the best work that a woman can do is to study household good and good works in her husband to promote. Now, this is a really key point. This forms part of Milton's views on what a successful marriage would be, that good works in her husband to promote. It was your Christian duty as a man to work to serve God. And if your wife was not helping you do that, then she basically wasn't a good wife. Now, we're talking here, there's kind of no such thing as the middle class in the 1600s, but we're not talking about, this isn't a luxury that's afforded to people with no money, and Milton, well, certainly until later in life, he was pretty well off. Came from a wealthy family. So this is what wives should be doing. They should be supporting their husbands, and if they can't do that, then Milton argued that actually that should be seen as potentially one of the grounds for divorce. So you could effectively bring the divorce tracts in here. So this makes us think about Mrs. Lind and how she actually has been forced to work since her husband died and left her with pretty much nothing. Luckily for her, the children that she'd helped raise are grown up and are sorted, as are her own brothers, and her mother has died. So she's now having to work just for herself. So it brings in issues about labour and choice. And Adam points out that, listen, God's not said to us that we can't stop and talk, right? Because refreshment is necessary, whether that's refreshment in terms of food or food of the mind. So it's fine if we need to stop and chat. And that's what makes us different to the animals, you see, that we can stop and have this conversation. And then he says, but if much converse perhaps thee satiate, if maybe you've had enough of conversation with me lately, to short absence I could yield. For solitude sometimes is best society, and short retirement urges sweet return. So, okay, if you're really saying that you've had enough, maybe you could go off for a short time, because then you'll miss me and you'll come back. And I can't help but hear that Adam is wanting Eve to reply, oh, no, it's not that I've had enough of you. I love talking to you. She's got no choice. Who else is she going to talk to? But he says, look, let's be honest. There are other things that are worrying me here. We've been warned, haven't we, that there is a malicious fall who envies our happiness, and due to his own despairing, seeks to work us woe and shame. Video going on next door. I'm going to see if I have to pause this again. So it's better if we work near one another so that we can lend each other help if we need it. We don't know what his purposes are, this malicious fall, whether it's to withdraw our fealty from God or to disturb conjugal love, then which perhaps no bliss enjoyed by us excites his envy more. Conjugal love, meaning physical love, perhaps even going so far as to meaning sex, that, this malicious fall is incredibly envious of the physical side of our relationship. So don't go, because I that gave you being, remember she comes from his rib, I shade and protect you. Safest and seemliest by her husband stays. That's a really nice little line to learn there. Safest and seemliest by her husband stays. So we're starting to bring in this idea that, and this word seemliest, of dishonour, of not only would she be in danger, but perhaps this sense of dishonour, and this carries on for centuries, the idea, and it still exists in many countries to this day, that women can't go anywhere without a chaperone, right? Because they might bring dishonour onto their husbands. And that might make us start thinking about, bourgeois respectability. Let's think here about when Nora and Rank are alone. Although they're in the home, it's they are in a private space together. Nora shows Rank her stockings. Rank confesses his love. If a chaperone were there, that wouldn't have happened. So she is dishonouring her husband in that way. Okay. Eve replies, and she says, "Look, I overheard everything the angel told you about this this enemy that we have. But what I didn't expect to hear from you was your doubt in me. His violence thou fearest not, being such as we, not capable of death or pain, can either not receive or can repel." Like, why we don't have to worry about him physically. He can't hurt us. His fraud is then thy fear, which plain infers thy equal fear that my firm faith and love can by his fraud be shaken or seduced. So what you actually are worried about here, Adam, is not the physicality of an attack, but that I will be deceived by him. And of course, Adam is proved right. That's exactly what happens, because women are weaker minded. They do not have the mental capacities to work this out. She says, where have these ideas come from? Why do you automatically doubt me? Well, that's because you're a woman. So it's automatic. Right, so I've put there Nora and Torvald's relationship. Is that a relationship built on trust? Or is it a relationship built on the idea that Torvald is just in charge and that he has to have the responsibility for everything? I mean, she can't even be trusted to go shopping and not eat macaroons, for example. So again, I said, look at kind of the way in which Adam addresses her. So now he's still offering healing words. To whom with healing words, Adam replied, "Oh, look, daughter of God and man, immortal Eve, from sin and blame entire." At this point, she's still completely, this is prelapsarian, innocent, perfect Eve. "It's not that I doubt you. Oh, it's not you. It's this enemy, okay? And actually, this enemy is not likely, right, to try and attack me. But if he sees you alone, then there's the chance that he'll go for you. I'm just trying to protect you from you being offended by his temptation." And he reminds Eve that, look, this enemy must be very persuasive. He managed to persuade a whole load of angels to rebel with him against God. So he's got some skills in this area. Now, if we were together and this happened, this would actually give me strength, he says. "I, from the influence of thy looks, receive access in every virtue. In thy sight, I would become more wise, more watchful, stronger. I would have more outward strength. I would have more vigour, because I wouldn't want to look weak in front of you. So that's why it's better if we're together, because actually you will make me stronger." Now, this makes me think instantly of Torvald and the miracle. Think of everything. Oh, I've got Doll's House here. That he says at the end, how he's often wanted to have the opportunity to save her. Okay. Oh, I can't find it. I knew that would happen. I'll come back to that. Hang on. I can pause it, can't I? Okay, so we might want to think here about Helmer at the end of the play. So when he learns of the blackmail, he says, I can't believe that you've done this to me. He's worried that people will think that he's behind it. You that I carried with my two hands throughout our entire marriage. And then he talks about keeping it quiet. From now on, forget happiness. Now it's just about saving the remains, the wreckage, the appearance. And then, everything's kind of resolved incredibly quickly. And he says, it's finished. I do know that what you did out of love for me. And Noah says, that's true. A wife should love her husband, and that's how you love me. Do you think I love you less because you don't know how to act on your own? No, lean on me. I'll advise you. I'll teach you. I wouldn't be much of a man if your being helpless didn't make you doubly attractive. And then he goes on to say about how he's, I've saved you from the hawk's claws and they've hunted you, you poor dove. I'll forgive you. There is something so sweet, so satisfying for a man to know in himself that he has forgiven his wife. It's as if he's twice made her his own. It's like he's given her a new life. In a way, she's become his wife and his child. At which point, all the time that Torvald is saying this, Nora's getting changed into her day clothes, ready to leave him. So that idea of the masculinity being linked to protection, how it all falls apart for Torvald when it's linked to bourgeois respectability, and it's saving the wreck, and all about the appearance of the marriage. Okay. And then Eve goes on to argue, well, what kind of life is this then? If this be our condition, thus to dwell in narrow circuits straitened by a foe, how are we happy still in fear of harm? And so she's arguing there for both of their freedom to do what they want. And she says, look, it won't be any dishonour to me if he tries to tempt me or to hurt me. It'll be dishonour on him. Rather, she says, I'll have double honour because I'll be able to prove that I can handle it, that I can fight against it. And then she says, let us not then suspect our happy state, left so imperfect by the Maker wise, as not secure to single or combined. Frail is our happiness, if this be so. And we're not Eden, thus exposed. Are we really living in Eden if it's an Eden that can so easily be altered by this enemy? Adam's getting a little bit annoyed now. He's fervently replying, "Oh, woman." And again, just a lovely little quotation there to show how much she's changed. She's no longer his virgin majesty, his offspring of heaven and earth. It's "Oh, woman." Best are all things as the will of God ordained them, his creating hand, nothing imperfect or deficient left of all that he created. Don't go doubting that God's left something out or done something wrong, much less man, or aught that might his happy state secure from outward force. Within himself the danger lies. It's in here. It's in our choices that we make. Okay? Don't put that on God, that's on us. Yet lies within his power. Against his will he can receive no harm. But God left free the will. For what obeys reason is free, and reason he made right, but bid her well beware. So reason is personified here as a woman who must be watchful and vigilant. She must remain erect, lest by some fair appearing good surprised, she dictate false and misinform the will to do what God expressly hath forbid. So I want you to imagine like the will are your choices or what you do, and they're governed by your reason, by your logic. And this is kind of one of Milton's arguments, really, that women don't possess this in the same way as men, and that's why they shouldn't be allowed to make choices. But this was part of his argument against censorship, because People should have free speech, because if it is coupled, but only if it's coupled with reason and with logic. So like everything with Milton, it's not free speech for everyone. It's not divorce for everyone. Basically it's for Protestant white men, wealthy Protestant white men, puritanical men. So this is what's important here, this idea about free will, that as long as your reason is in charge, you'll be all right. Not then mistrust, but tender love enjoins that I should mind thee oft, and mind thou me. As a man, my reason is just better than yours, therefore you should do what you're told. Right. Seek not temptation then. Well, she hasn't said that she wants to do that for a start, which to avoid were better, and most likely if from me thou sever not. Trial will come unsought. Wouldst thou approve thy constancy, approve first thy obedience. And underline that, highlight that. This is the problem, is that she's disobedient. Okay? But if you think that you can, deal with any of these trials, go. Look where that's placed at the beginning of the line, and repeat it on the next, go. For thy stay, not free, absency. Or if you don't want to be here, then go. Fine. A little bit petulant. Rely on what thou hast of virtue. Summon all. For God towards thee hath done his part. Do thine. It's in your hands now. God has made you innocent and pure. And if you're going to go, then it's on you. Right? And she says, okay, well, if I've got your permission then, off I go. The willinger I go, nor much expect a foe so proud will first the weaker seek. So she's like, why would he come and attack me? That would be no honour on him. If he's gonna come from you. Thus saying, from her husband's hand, her hand, softly she withdrew. And that's it. This is gonna be the last time that they enjoy a moment together as this completely innocent, immortal, pure couple. She's gonna come back changed. Now, I set my students some homework to rewrite that conversation in modern English, and they found it really helpful. Some of them were really funny, actually. So if I haven't set you that, have a go. And thank you for listening to my first video on the first section of book